It's a real pleasure to speak to everybody again. I don't know where tonight's going to go. I have no idea. What I do know is about a month and a half ago, I was starting to get very strong feelings about starting to create another webinar series. I've spent the last several months in answer to one of the questions I just clipped into the edge of as I logged on about moving to Auckland. It's been a huge adjustment. I'm not a city person, but that is exactly where the journey takes us, and I think that's probably the philosophy of the journey that we're all on, is wherever the energy of something greater needs us to be is where we need to be. And the path isn't always clear, and the path isn't always easy, but it's always the path. The theme of this webinar is called The Journey of the Spirit. Hi, Nolene. And it's called The Journey of the Spirit. That was a name on behalf of the Alonis Foundation that Alonis gave, I believe it was around about 1995 when he spoke and said in the future that Alonis Foundation would speak about the journey of the Spirit. And I thought about it before logging in, and so I just want to talk about what's in my mind. And there's been significant energy changes. There always is, but of late, 2025 has certainly been a tumultuous year. It has been a difficult year. It still is a difficult year. And I think that a lot of the things that we can talk about tonight, I hope, can bring clarity. The reason why it's called The Journey of the Spirit is because the word spirit, it really connects into what is real within us. Now, that may sound obvious, but I want to explain it in a little bit more detail, because obviously the concept of the soul is one thing that people talk about. We have to look at one fundamental reality, and that is that this is not real. It is simulated memory. The whole documentary, The Illusion of Reality, is designed to create the concept and to open up the concept. And again, this is never about believing me or anyone. It's about believing only the sound you carry inside. That has the truth. And the truth is subjective. It always changes. As Alonis said, it's an ever-changing movement of awareness. But what is real is always the same. And so the spirit goes far beyond the soul. The soul is the human connection to the collective soul of humanity. That is a memory here in this reality of Earth that we live in. But the spirit goes beyond that. The spirit is the deepest essence within, and it goes and extends beyond our energy field into greater dimensions of our being, and beyond this reality entirely to what's real somewhere else. And so the journey of the spirit is really the journey home. It's still exactly the same thing. The Journey Home was the first book that Alonis asked Diane to write, and so the journey of the spirit is still the journey home. So that's why this webinar series, and I hope it to be a series, an ongoing series, is called The Journey of the Spirit. And there's some questions that have come through. I want to go through those. The strongest thing I was asked to speak about was the greater and the lesser mind. And so that is going to be a theme tonight, the greater and the lesser mind. And there is a great deal of energy that I feel tonight, a great deal of depth of presence tonight that's here. And so I hope in the questions that we uncover and the answers that follow, there is a chat function here. Obviously, I'm just going to open that up on my computer, so if people have questions, obviously I can see them. And from that point, I would like to just also thank Diane, because without Diane, I certainly wouldn't be here. So much wouldn't be here. Diane was unique, and her devotion over 40 years is what has led to so much awareness. And yes, information, there's a lot of information, but without her dedication and without all of our dedications, this wouldn't be where it is today. So I want to honour Diane in this moment, just because of her work and her dedication, and because of the love that she had for something greater. And so I thank her for that, and in her name I'm very proud to be able to do that. So I think where I'd like to start is probably a bit of a recap, if people don't mind, because I think coping with life in this reality is one of the hardest things that any of us have to do. It's one of the most difficult things in a lesser awareness to uphold perspective sometimes. It's a very difficult place to be at times. What goes on in this program is nothing short of very difficult. And so I wanted to recap a little, because extending on from the illusion of reality, that opened up the question about this being a simulated reality, and of course we know that it is. There's lots of people now talking about the simulation, and of course the documentary talks about the experiment that proved a part of that. Within that, we have to understand that this is an illusion, not to us, not to the human being. To us, this is very, very real. But in the beginning, this was once something very, very different. It's not at all what it was in the very beginning. And when I say the beginning, I'm talking about before time began here. And so I'll just take a few minutes just to go over some very fundamental concepts, some fundamental levels of awareness, I think, because it sets the pace for some of the answers that I'd like to give to the questions that have been given. I have 4 questions in total. And we have to understand that when they find that this is reality, this is block time, it is a memory that's been reconstructed, this is a base reality, we have to understand why. And I'm saying this from not only the information that we've got over the decades, but also because of the experiences that happen every single night. Every single night then when we sleep. I have made a lifetime's work out of remembering as much as I can through the night. And through the night, there are so many experiences into other places, journeys into other worlds, into the past, into the future. And it's important, I think, to understand, again, the fundamental concept of where we are, to open up some of the answers that I can give here. There was once a program created called the Worlds of Zor. And the Worlds of Zor was a training program. It was a training program created by what we are, a higher aspect of light, a collective higher world's sound of light in the real. And when I say the real, it's what is real, reality that we all come from. And in order to experience what it's like within the lower worlds of evolution, to experience different aspects of one's memory in the eons of journey that we all took from where we come from, they created 120 worlds, and there's reasons for that. And they created the Worlds of Zor so that initiates could enter into that world of Zor, and they could experience different dimensions, different lives, different experiences, in order to reconcile aspects of the experiences of what it is through the millennia of evolution. And so we lay down into a dream chamber and we dreamed ourselves into this program in its original form. And I'm happy to answer any questions about all of this because it's so important, and this is not just a concept or a belief. This is evidence, this is real experiences, this is information that over the decades keeps tying together and validating itself. And it's also a deep memory inside, where we know that it's real because of experiences we have and things that we remember. And that's why I say, whatever resonates to you resonates. If it doesn't, search deeper within yourself for what does resonate. Don't believe me, only believe you. Believe the sound that I'm speaking with or the sound that you hold inside. And so a long, long time ago, we would dream into this world, this or many, many other worlds, for a short time, a short experience, maybe a year, maybe for one event. We would dream ourselves into this world of separation, into a human being, into other energies of light, non-corporeal form, whatever it might be needed. And we would have an experience, and then we would learn, and we would wake up and return. It was a training program. It was a program for initiates, which simply means someone who is learning. Even a higher energy of light can be an initiate. It can enter into an experience to learn something. And that is why this world was only ever supposed to be temporary. And for a long time it was used. It was used as a training program for a long, long time. And the the next stage of that story is that when it was no longer needed, it was closed down, and the collectives from which we all come from continued to move on in their journey through places we can't even imagine in this world. We don't have the memory consciously here. And so that experience was no longer required. But what was required, obviously in the lower worlds, human beings on the real Earth, not this planet, this is not a real planet, it's a simulated planet. And there was a concerted effort by an alien group that wanted to commandeer Earth's evolution, commandeer humanity, and in order to do that they needed to understand how humanity worked, and so they got involved with humanity to deceive them, to ask for a section of the program. The humans, of course, asked for a section of the Earth program for their own advancement, and they were given a section of the Earth program to train in their own spacefaring, I guess, endeavours. It was, of course, handed over to an alien consortium, and the alien consortium obviously gave humans who did so some kind of reward for that, and the alien consortium refashioned the fragment of the program, Earth, into an experimental program, and they subsequently abducted humans from long-haul space missions, from colonies where they couldn't be detected that they were lost or kidnapped, and they took over 1 million human beings from the information we've got, and put them into this training program in order to understand the human mind. And that's important, and I know I've said it before, I've explained it in brief before, but it's important to preface it today because it's a serious subject, but I don't want the seriousness to outweigh the beauty of the light that we also need to discuss tonight, because it is the beauty of the light that we hold that is the most important thing. But I need to set a parameter, I need to set a base. And so that experiment occurred, and we are seeing the result, the remnants of that experiment here around us today. This world, being a simulation, is made up of information. It is made up of base coding systems. It is made up of multiple timelines mosaicked together, if you like, into what looks like one continual reality. And it's not. That's why some events seem to happen, or might happen, then don't. That's why some prophecies don't come true, some prophecies do come true. We live in a world where we are looking at multiple realities patched together to look like a single reality. And that's why it's so confusing, is because many times we look at one thing and it seems to be happening, and then an event will change. The Mandela effect is a perfect example of that, where some people remember things one way and some people remember things another way. You may have had experiences like Diane and I had for many years, where things would disappear and then reappear 6 months later in the same spot, because we were dipping in and out of one reality to the next. And this world is not what it seems at all. The documentary goes to great length to open the question, is it flat or is it round, when it's neither. It operates as a flat plane because it is in a constructed reality and doesn't have an outer space to it, which we need to get into that a bit more as to one of the questions. But it operates as a flat plane, but it's within a cube structure. It's block space and time. That's what reality is, three-dimensional space. That's a cube. And so we have a structure of space which is reconstructed. And this space, because it was reconstructed for nefarious purposes originally, it was created with boundaries, and it was created with rules, and it was created with sabotage for anyone who tried to look beyond the veil that they were allowed to see. And so people who would look and question reality are regularly deplatformed. It's still the function of memory here, and I'll explain what that means shortly as well. And so the point is that it was created for the experiment on the human mind, and we can see that around us. We can see the memory of the experiment unfolding, and because when we look around us, if the experiment once happened, which it did, why is it still happening around us, which it looks like it is? And so that's the question we want to answer tonight, amongst others, because the experiment did start, and I've said before, it was stopped after what we believe and what we know to be the third rotation. So they rotated the whole experiment once and then twice, and then in the third time it stopped. And then this is now the seventh rotation of this space and time. And again, there's reasons. It'll take time to get into these subjects, but I think it's important that we do so, as well as answer questions. And it was stopped a long, long time ago. But I bring us back to the box in the documentary as to why did we use a box in order to describe something. And the answer is very simple, because if someone has taken a box and they have locked the box and they have sabotaged the box, you don't know what's inside the box until you open the box. And that's a very, very crude and simple analogy of what happened when the great ones of what we really are, all of us, when they attempted to enter into this experiment to retrieve the human beings, they opened up a locked box that was obviously booby-trapped, sabotaged, and as all things, as above, so below. And an energy of a greater being, which we call he, only because it's the aspect of energy that entered into a creative energy field. There are two aspects of energy, masculine and feminine, at all times, until you get to the one of all, and that's a different story. We'll get to that. And so when the energy entered into a experimental platform, a very powerful energy of light entered in to rescue humans that were within this base reality. And there's a complexity around that reality, because there was a collective experiment, there was individual experiments, and this is why a lot of people who are real grow up with experiences in their childhood that are quite disturbing, because of the alien interaction, the interdimensional influences, the energetic influences that have been here for a long time. The program running its course to try and stop people waking up. We're all not without experiences, I believe, that come from beyond here. And when this energy entered into this reality, it was such a powerful energy that it attempted to recode this reality in order to restore it to its original condition, to wake up the human beings and get them out of here safely. Unfortunately, the corruption to the coding formulas was too severe, and this energy, a greater energy, started to invert and collapse in on itself. And this is where the stories of Lucifer, demonic entities, a being sitting in a chair, governing all things, Lord of the Rings, the Emperor in Star Wars, they're all the same collective fractal message passing through the program in different mediums, because it's all derived from an original energy that was light, that entered into help and fell and inverted. And unfortunately and very sadly, a lot of our people were drawn down almost like a well, as an energy fell deeper and deeper down, that it drew with it, and the gravity of its fall drew others down with it, and a lot of our people were lost into the darkness of what this place became. And so what was once a experiment of only the Earth, of 120 different worlds, this greater energy, having the codes of creation built into its energy system as a light being, took the higher codings of light and creation from the higher heavens, the higher worlds, and these coding systems were drawn down into the depths of the lower worlds, where primitive basic energy structures are the form of evolution. And so a very powerful energy was immersed into a very dense energy, and that created and activated all of the duplicate keys, which is another story, and created reality in accordance to its darkness. And that's why a lot of people who do remote viewing, a lot of people who research time and space, a lot of people who leave their bodies at night, myself included, a lot of people who do psychic travelling, a lot of people have often encountered a very dark, very dense, very powerful energy. And there was a time when that energy was absolutely in control of what we call duplicate space. So to explain that phrase, and I know I'm expanding on this a lot, but I think it's important. Duplicate space is creation of 120 worlds, recreated not in its original format, recreated in its darker format. And it became a prison for so many of us. And I think I would be surprised if anyone here did not have memories of places and worlds and experiences or anxieties, fears, different kinds of feelings about other worlds, other places, other times where they feel shaken, they feel disturbed, they feel harassed, they feel overwhelmed, they feel afraid. Because for a long, long time, the battles in these places were fought and sometimes lost, but ultimately won. Now that's still happening, and this is the hard part to get our head around. It once happened, it is happening, and it did once happen, because of course we are within the illusion of time, actually in timeless space. And again, this is probably something that you may want to listen to again, to break it down in your mind, and as I said, I will expand on it. But the greater ones came, and they came to rescue our people, they came to rescue all of us. And then when that also went wrong, because so many of us fell, so many of us turned, so many of us forgot why we came here, and so many of us turned away and ran and hid, because it was so overwhelmingly frightening and so overwhelmingly dark. And it was a very long-lasting tragedy. It took another 4 rotations of this entire matrix system to get to where we are today, which is when the shift occurred. And Eileen, I'll just briefly mention your question. Refers to, I think it's Archaic's chronological findings. And it was interesting to see that, because they also designate 2020 as being an impact point. And when the shift occurred, all of the parts of reality which were always looping over and over again, that never gave anyone an exit, that never allowed anyone to get out. And so many times, so many places, they look like they're the way out, but they just return back to the start again. And so there was so much trickery and deception in this world. And so on 2020, on February 10, which was prophesized in 2001, actually, the shift occurred everywhere, through all universal levels all at once, and the pathway home was established. What that meant is from the real, beyond the matrix, beyond this system, they entered into here, and they accessed into where everyone was stuck and lost, into the deeper levels of creation. And that's why they say it's all over, because to them, everything that ever happened has already happened. Everything that has ever been done has been done. We're still within the memory of that. And that's challenging to wrap our head around sometimes. We're still within the memory. We're here because we're still a part of what eventually worked. And that's also hard to wrap our head around. But if it's not for us being here, it would never work in the future. And that's also hard for us to wrap our head around. But it's a temporal thing. We have to understand that we're trying to understand the timeless with a time consciousness. And we're trying to understand reality through one layer of space when there's multiple layers of space. We are at a conscious disadvantage, but again, remember, humanity was the base of this entire experiment at the beginning. It was the first contact point in this reality, and it will be the last. It will be the last and final, because the real got access into this reality, and everyone goes home through the pathway of light. And that's why this is called the journey of the spirit, because it is about remembering the illusion of this reality. It is about going inward, always going inward. You will never find the answers on the outside. Never. You will find evidence, you will find examples, representations, you will find correlations, validations, but you'll never find answers. You'll only find answers going within. And we all have the same answer deep, deep down, but different versions of it the closer we get to the consciousness. But one truth remains, is that the real is here. And that is why after 2020 we were told that when the shift occurred that there would be no more interdimensional interference. And Diane and I spent 15, nearly 20 years battling almost nightly energies, very dense futuristic energies. It was very difficult. And then overnight in 2020 it all stopped, just like I said it would. And so what we are here today is a reality that was deliberately put in place as a an entry point. And that's what I would like to encourage everyone to understand, having heard all of that, which I know is complex, and I know there's going to be questions. If there is, we can answer them. If there's not questions now, we can answer them next time. But people ask what this reality is and why we are here. This reality is an entry point. It's a doorway. We are all doorways. And that's because if you can imagine, again, that 120 worlds that were recreated with the wrong energy in a very dark light, that was containing everything that went wrong, and that was holding people prisoner, that was keeping people from remembering, they had to create a doorway into it. And so the original experiment had parts of it which didn't work. And there is a chamber of energy called the eighth chamber, and that held parts of the experiment which did not work. So the alien consortium created attempt after attempt to try and break down the human psyche and divide humanity and make man merge with machines, ultimately to become a slave cybernetic race. That was the agenda, which we can see is unfolding around us every day here. That's where humanity is heading in this memory, because this is the part of the experiment that they once conducted. But it never worked. The experiment never worked. And it was never completed. They were stopped before it got any further. But we are seeing, with all the AI, with all of the cybernetics, with all of the addictions, with all of the breakdown of community, with all of the family breakdown, there is a lot of enforcement of agenda in this reality, in this world, which is dividing people. Choice is great. People can have choice, whatever they like. It's beautiful. But social engineering is different. And so what we have is a very powerful memory still unfolding, and it was deliberately put here by our people, this layer of reality, as a doorway. It was the only point of relativity to access the places in space where so many of us were trapped for so long. Greater beings, members of the command, because the Galactic Command, of course, was primarily held the collective energies that entered into this reality, and so many of us were lost. And so in order to access a world that was completely created in its own design, they had to have some kind of relativity to access that world, and so they had to recreate this doorway. And that's what this world is. It's a doorway. It's not a very pleasant doorway. It's not one that many of us enjoy living in, but we know what love is, and that's the key. And so this world, this simulation, this limited simulation, is quite simply a doorway of memory. And when you go to sleep at night, you are not you anymore. You are gaining a deeper part of your deeper energy field, and you are journeying into other places. That's where the real mission is, when we go to sleep, as well as when we're awake. People ask what our responsibilities are on this level, and the answer couldn't be more simple. It is to remember. It is to completely be aware that deep, deep down, nothing is real but light. And that isn't a statement that's vague. That isn't a statement that's cliche. All we are is light. We are a collective of light that is here to save our brothers and sisters, our kind, everyone. And when we remember that we are light, that we are love, that is all that's real, then you resonate to an energy, a frequency of light that is independent of this reality. And that is very important, because navigating this space, which is one of the questions I'll get to in a moment, it is about resonating to the energy of light that you are. And that's why I said before, you can't find the ants on the outside. You can only find them on the inside. And so this world is a reconstructed memory. It's a mosaic, a combination of different fractions and fragments of the original experiment against humanity. It has been accelerated. We were told about that in 2018. Before Diane got sick, we were told that the program itself has detected a presence of the real, and it was reacting against it. And from that moment in 2018, we started to see events accelerate, and of course we all experienced COVID about 20 days after Diane passed away. So the shift occurred on the 10th of February, and in Australia at least, within 2 weeks, COVID was exploding everywhere. And so we saw the reaction of a programmed attempting to get in before the shift occurred from a greater light, but it failed, because the greater light, of course, comes in from the center point of reality, and this program is simply reality. And so this program is always at a disadvantage, even though it believes it is at an advantage, because it's ultimately illusion. Darkness is never real, only light is real. And so the light enters in from a future frequency, and it had to bypass everything that was happening in order to access into the deepest core and to retrieve a great being, to retrieve many others, and to ultimately get everyone home. And that's where we are now, on the journey home. And that is the journey of the spirit. It's to remember what you are. It's to be kind to who you are, and to know that your human being has insecurities. It has cares, it has needs, it has a wonder of hopes and dreams. And so it should. You didn't choose you because you didn't have these capacities. You chose you to enter into because you were perfect for your light to vibrate within. And it's important to understand within that every one of us who are here chose to be here. Now, some days we probably regret it as human beings, but ultimately when we quieten down and we slow down and we become very, very still within, we know that we are here for something that matters. We chose to come. I do know from my memories of the real, which we've done a lot of research on and remote viewing and deeper memory recall on, that as many of us who came, so many more wanted to come. Because why wouldn't you? If you knew that there was innocent human beings being experimented on in places unknown, why wouldn't you search, find, need to help? And we did. The Galactic Command came to the call, and we came. And so the love that you came in with, and every one of us who have been here had an experience here when it was originally a training program. We were all familiar with the concept and the experience of being within an illusion. All of us were familiar with it. No one entered here without having been here once before in its original format. And so that's why we have to draw upon that memory, that our light energy understands that it's difficult. But we have to be very kind to us as human beings, because it is difficult. But at the same time, when we remember that we're not just human beings, there's an awareness factor that I hope and I believe grows. Because, again, we're not here to just be human beings, we're here to be a duality. And I've mentioned that before, it's very important. A duality is being who you are, as the beautiful people sitting here listening to this right now, and what you are, which is the essence of light that you hold. And we have to know that we have to be both, who and what, which means we have to do our best to lessen our reactions to a program that isn't even happening. Now, my day-to-day income every day is as a trauma therapist and as a psychology grief counsellor. So I work with people every day with very, very sad and very troubling stories, and I give them everything I've got to help them heal, understand, grow, reflect, somatically as well as psychologically. And that person may never understand that there's a greater energy even existing. It doesn't matter. I'm talking to a beautiful person who needs help, so for me, to them, I'm there for them. My energy is speaking through them into the depth of a reality which should never have happened, and is permeating through layers and layers of space to reach those who, in the depth of creation, in the darkness of it all, need light. And that is one thing Alana said so long ago: this world needs light. And that's always been the truth, and it will always be the truth. And we will all draw our last breath one day, and we will all return back into the light of what we are, and we will all go home. And so every day matters, and whilst we draw breath, it matters. If we weren't supposed to be here, we wouldn't be here. And that is a profound recognition of the way it actually works. It's not a comment to validate what seems to be a pointless life. So many say, I don't see the point. The point is to remember every moment of every day that you are existing within illusion, and that you are a conduit, a doorway for a greater part of yourself to permeate. It could be to the person that you're talking to, it could be to the space itself, it could be when you go to sleep, you're entering into worlds that need your help. And it's difficult because we don't always remember. And that's also a part of it, is how do you vibrate to the beauty of remembering when you don't remember? And what you have to do, of course, is to find within you something that remembers at least what love is. And I think we all do that. I think I've had conversations with almost everybody here, and we all do that. And so that is the conduit to a greater memory. And fear is the obstacle. We all have fear sometimes. We're human. Humans are built upon a lot of fear. And we have to be aware that when we hold our humanity equal to our light in this place, we're doing our job. But we can't hold one over the other. Our light needs our humanity, and our humanity most certainly needs our light. And so, from the very beginning, where a very tragic experiment was extorted out of the human naivety, misconstrued, misrepresented, broken, rebuilt, ultimately stopped, and then we ask, who created this absolute display of horror and grotesqueries around us? Well, the actual truth is the great ones did. They took what was already created by a very, very sad situation as the only access point possible into the worlds that were still operating, and they used it as a door. It's the only way to get in. It's like, I gave this analogy once to a gentleman I was talking to, and I said it's like there's a country. It's a big island, I said. Say it's a big island, and there's a war around the whole world, raging. And it's also raging on this island. And then greater powers come in and they stop the war. But their people are lost on that island. And they know that if they alert the antagonists on that island that the war's over, the antagonists will probably kill all of the people out of spite. They are hidden underground, hidden in burrows, hidden in cupboards, hidden in anywhere. So how do you find everybody if you alert the program to the fact that you're onto it? You don't. And so the war's over, and so they send in their people in disguise. They clothe them in the uniforms of the soldiers of that island. They give them the skills, all the memory. They give them the memory so they can speak the language, walk amongst them as them, be in disguise. Otherwise, if they're detected, they're useless. And so we march into a country which still thinks it's at war when the greater war is actually over. And we march into a country with a mission. And the mission is to get to point A to B, for example. Along the way, you see tragedies, you see grotesqueries, you see devastating things. And you're human because you're in disguise. And a part of you wants to stop and help. And sometimes you can. But sometimes your commanding officer says, no, you have to keep going. You can't stop here. We have to get to the next point. There's too many lives at stake. I know you want to stop, I know you want to help, but you have to keep going. And so a greater directive keeps you moving through tragedy. It's not that you agree with it, because you don't. But you have to realise that there's a greater power that has already halted the war. But you have to be in disguise and work through this place in order to reach those who can't be helped without you. And that's an analogy I gave to a gentleman once, which I believe is pertinent. It's valid. It may be a little simplistic, but it's valid. Because we have to remember at all times that that is why we're here. We're in disguise as human beings. And I think that helps us understand the duality a little bit better, I think. It's a very powerful story. I sometimes wish I could take all of the experiences, all of the years of listening to Alonis and Michael, Amon, he, talk. I wish I could give that to you. I wish I could just place it into your mind like a shining star and just burn bright. Because if you could feel what I feel, if you knew, which you do on another level, there are no words. And so there's just nothing greater than being aware of what we really are, but why we're here. It requires a great deal of trust to your own inner being, and that's the point I'm trying to make. We've all been here a very, very, very long time. Some of us longer than others, but nonetheless a very long time. Alonus himself came in directly after the first energy. Its name was Azil. These are not real names, these are just coding names. Of course, light doesn't have a name. But an aspect, the first entry of a greater energy named Azil entered and fell. I've encountered that energy quite a few times, particularly since 2020, in progressive stages of awakening. It's been nothing short of some of the most humbling experiences I could put words to. But after Azil fell, Alonus himself entered in directly after, and he has actually been here the whole time. And then, of course, again, there's lots more parts to the story. I'm trying to keep it concise because I could trail off into so many aspects of the story and just never stop talking. So I want to keep it pulled in. But Alonus himself has been here since the very beginning, and we're talking millennia. Imagine waiting beneath it all, disconnected for millennia. And that's the power of some of these experiences. And so I think there is a great humility in understanding that we are here, we are a part of something vastly beautiful, we are a part of something vastly important, even though in our everyday life we sometimes fail to see it, because we are surrounded by memory. And so I'll probably leave it there, and perhaps open up to any chat questions. If there's no chat questions, I'll go to the questions that were given. Okay, we're about 50 minutes in. I don't know how long this is going to last tonight. They still want me to speak about the greater and lesser mind. I will do that tonight. That's what they've asked me to do. But I felt the need to explore and just retrace, I think, a point of relativity where we're at. Yep. Grant, please.
If this is a simulation, what does the original look like?
That's a good question. The original Earth was not in conflict like this. We have to see this as a reproduction of the memory of the experiment on Earth. And so the real Earth was, they told us that it was very different. It wasn't like this at all. They never actually told us what it was like. And I believe that is because they didn't want us to get caught up in images and hopes and dreams of a place that didn't have a bearing on this. But the real Earth has time frames such as Egypt, Atlantis, Lemuria, interacts with Mars, the French-American continents, variations of what we see today, but without the experimental conflict, is my best understanding. That was the original Earth, and because some of the experiences that people downloaded into were in places where events took place in human history that were important to their learning. Yeah, but I couldn't tell you exactly what it was like because they never told us. But certainly life without the experimental conflict.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, the purpose of a simulation is to look very similar to the original. So,
granted, yes, looking like the simulation, but at the same time functioning nothing like the original. So the original Earth simulation was about life as a human being. I can tell you that much. It was about life through human society, but it was not destructive. It wasn't devastating. It was about understanding what humanity was about. But it wasn't about destroying and taking humanity apart from itself. And so, whilst it looked with continents and countries and people and evolution and technology and history, absolutely did, it was about exploring what humanity was like, but it wasn't about the agenda we see around us today.
So there was a physical realm in the sense that there was, mountains and trees and rivers.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, this is built upon the construct of Earth. Absolutely, this is the memory of Earth. But what is happening here around us, has got no bearing. This is a complete fabrication of events based upon the same memory construct of Earth and its people. And that's why in this construct, they have often spoken about how they created archetypal characters from which many other people were replicated from and gravitated back towards, because there's not that many variations here. When you get down to it, human beings, there's not that many variations. So it was a race created, yes, with trees and rivers and mountains and civilizations and so forth, but it was based upon the history of the real Earth as an experience to be had to understand what was like life once like as a human being. And that was one of many, many worlds in the original training program.
Yeah. I mean, my understanding was that it had polarity, but not to the diverse degree that we've got now.
Oh yeah, I mean, human experience is polarity. So we have fears, we have power imbalances. That's the human experience. A child race still working out what love actually means. And so that's what humanity is. So yes, so still the trials and tribulations, but not the extortion of experimentation and social and psychological breakdown, separation from its own spirit. That was never part of the original training program.
And before you mentioned that it was projected as a flat plane, but it's in fact a cube, but then you mentioned Mars. So is Mars an outside planetary system that appears to be in the simulation, or actually is? Or
in this sphere of reality, Mars doesn't exist as a planet. Its coding structure is within this memory replay, but Mars itself, we have to open up another answer to answer that question. What I said before was that this version of Earth is recreated as a doorway. And so the full creation, what we call duplicate space, which is the recreated 120 worlds of Zor, which is where all of us have been, where the energy fell into the core of, that construct 120 worlds, Mars exists in there. And so, but in this reality here, there isn't any outer space. So in order to get to outer space, we have to leave our body and move through the gateway, or move through the dimensional layers and actually leave this simulated environment. And that's what happens through the night. And that's what Antarctica is. It's a doorway. It's an access point through to the duplicate space. But this reality here is enclosed. It's not that big. It's very small. So it is a flat plane construct that does not have an outer space. Mars exists as a coding sequence, as a point of relativity in the coding matrix of this small program, and it exists as an actual duplicated planet in the 120 worlds of duplicated space. So you cannot launch from here in a flat trajectory out to get onto Mars. There is no outer space in this reality here. It's a closed, small field of coding.
There are people, and I've come across a few of them, but just off the top of my head, the guy Alabar Jones, who was talking about his ability to go out of his body and actually clear out a lot of these entities. He claims to be, him and a team of many, claims to be quite successful in that. Recently he said some of them seem to be reoccurring when he thought he had knocked them off. So any comments on other folks trying to do work from inside the framework here?
The only thing I would say is that the human being is not the director of the mission. And so I very likely that he is remembering work done on a greater level. If it's coming back, it's probably more likely to be a memory that he has, and he's fictionalizing the memory and trying to reproduce it as a mission on this level. But the human being does not have the ability to control the mission. And so grabbing a team of people and clearing energies, maybe those energies were supposed to be there to be observed by a greater energy to move through them to get to somewhere else. And so understanding this program is a doorway to other worlds. Sometimes things aren't supposed to be cleared, because sometimes that's the only connection point to places that they need to go.
Okey-doke.
And maybe that's why they come back, is maybe because they don't clear them at all and they're reinstated by something greater that needs it to be there.
Okay.
I've heard a lot of people claiming to have a lot of success clearing energies, and then that goes into everything from soul contracts and all kinds of different missions. And missions are very profound. They're very common. I just opened the question that the statement, I guess, the human being isn't in charge. We're a part of a greater energy, and when we understand that this is a reality that was created by a greater power, if we are overriding that, or if we think we're participating in that, maybe you are, maybe you aren't. I don't believe, in my experience, that people who are clearing energies are actually doing it. I believe they are remembering another part of their being that does do things, is highly active, and I believe a lot of the time it is a fictionalized version by the human consciousness, because the mission isn't directed by the human, it's directed by something much greater. The human being is an illusion. The energy of what they are is real. So, not a popular view by most people, because people want a purpose, people want a mission, people want to believe in something, and I totally understand that. But when we look at that it is an illusion, it's not real, and then we look at how to understand that reality, then we have to understand also that the human being isn't the one in charge. Okay, Eileen, I think I saw a hand go up there.
Yes, so you spoke that we are beings of light. There is nothing but light. There is also a mimic or a false light, because stuff that I've looked at about going through the tunnel of light when you die and the near-death experiences, etc. That to me, I understand as a false light, because it loops you back into this matrix again, into this experience again.
Okay,
So
I think I got most of that, yes.
Yeah. When we pass on, my understanding is that we stand in our own light and we not get swayed by the false tunnel and loop back into the reincarnation.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, I understand. And that, I mentioned before about going within. So when someone passes away, and then of course it opens up our reality to the etheric worlds, to the thought worlds, the multifaceted dimensions of the thought worlds. If a regular human being character, for example, has a soul energy, operates only and resonates only to the earth evolutionary energy, it would necessarily enter into those levels and be recycled back around. It's a memory program. So when we pass and we see the light, it depends upon the light you're resonating with. And so I would suggest that, because I know this is a kind of question that we've talked about before, in that if you are resonating to the light of what you really are, then there is no way that you are recycled, because the light of what you are enters in through the gateway into this reality, into your energy field. It's you. And so if you are the light of what you are, and one day you pass away, the light of what you are is connecting to you from beyond this whole illusion. So you will not get caught in any pathway back here, because you're vibrating to a frequency and to a sound that does not relate to the human being at all anyway. So it does come down to the frequency of light that you resonate to. But I also want to say that that's why they exacted the shift, is because so many of our people were not able to sustain the connection of light within their consciousness and within their energy. They couldn't sustain it. The weight of fear and uncertainty was far too great, and so the last step of the greater plan was to initiate a bypass exactly because of the reason you're talking about, because so many people couldn't break free of the cycle of time and the cycle of energy. And so, it comes down to the fact that now, with the shift, the energy of what you really are is reconnected. And that's what the shift did, Eileen. It connected what we are to who we are. And it connected us to the only pathway back home. And so what that did is to make available a frequency that connected to your energy field. Now, it doesn't even matter if you know that or not, if you remember that or not. It doesn't matter whether you consciously wake up or you stay in forgetfulness. It doesn't matter whether you live a life of awareness or a life of fear. You're connected to what you are, and no matter what happens, you go home. That's why I'm so vocal about all these talk about contracts and all these talk about, we said about bloodlines on an email exchange a few weeks ago, because there's a lot of attempts by the program to embed fear in people, to try and energize the time cycle, to try and energize the loop of time, to energize the dimensional memories. And if we are remembering the memories of missions long since past, and we're remembering the chaos that we experienced, and we're afraid that we will get recycled again, then we are remembering the past. We're not remembering the essence of light that we are, which is from beyond this whole reality. And so the soul's journey, again, the soul gets recycled. The old program of this reality recycles all of reality, and that's probably what you're talking about, is being recycled back around in this whole experience. But within the center point of that, the inner chamber of your own being, is a connection to your inner light, and that is the spirit of light that you are, which is already connected to where you come from before you even entered here. And so that's why there's a bypass, is no matter what happens, no matter how well or how unwell you live your life, you're going home, because that was what the shift achieved, a connection to all of our people.
It's some comfort, because I'm sort of still not trying to rescue people, but, let people know, and it just gets too hard sometimes, because...
Yep. Yeah, it gets very hard. And it goes back to, in a way, Grant's question before about people fulfilling missions they believe. I'm not saying that there are not, because there are still missions going on. My nights are filled with them. But I know that they are in other spaces. They are in other places, long time ago, long time in the future. Time is a very broad and subjective term. And so there is a lot of activity still going on, because if it's not for that activity, it never ended when it did actually end. And so from the end comes the result of all of our work, which is to guarantee us a pathway home. And so I know fear is hard to shake sometimes, Eileen. I know the memory of, I think Eileen's dropped the signal again, we'll keep talking. The memory of what happened here is very strong sometimes. But I look at it this way in the simplest of terms. Darkness isn't real. Light is the only thing that exists. And so when you register the light, darkness is the illusion. And then the same thing is when we pass away. Light is all we are. So I'm not trying to oversimplify, but that is the important thing to remember. And we don't have any contracts with the program. Yes, Grant?
Say, for example, we pass on.
Sorry, I got disconnected. I find when I start talking about this subject, my phone gets disconnected all the time.
That's okay, I understand. I did answer it. Grant was just having a question here, so maybe we'll loop back to it, Eileen, if that's okay.
That's okay. Recording.
Yeah.
Okay, so say we pass on, as you said, there's X number of us here. When we all leave and the rest that are here aren't real, what happens to this construct? Does it disappear? Does it stop, or what?
I would ask you that when you wake up in the morning, what happens to the dream that you had?
Well, based on a time frame, it's in the past. Is that what you're getting at?
What I'm getting at is the fact that the dream was an experience you had, and when you wake up, it's no longer happening. And so the program that we are in, it's only observable because we are here. It's only observable because we're here. And so when we leave, there's nothing left to observe. And then we look at reality as a coding structure. We look at fragmented thought, which of course separates into reality. And then we look at space, and then the single thought that created space. The whole point to a greater part of this is that the greatest part of the mission of all is to retract everything on our way out. So there isn't anything left when we leave. It's a retraction process. It was created by an energy of light, and it gets retracted by an energy of light. And then we have to look at the concept of space, which is a much bigger topic. But no, once those who are real are vacated, there's nothing left. It's a simulation.
Well, I can get that from a point of view as if there was some other weird simulation going on the other side of the universe. We're not observing it, so to all intents and purposes, it doesn't exist for us.
Yeah, that's still contained within space, and we're talking about removal of space, not just removal of memory, but the removal of space. So it's a much big. It's not just this program; it's space itself, which is a profound thing to understand, that it's being removed. So that's why there's nothing left when it's all over.
But does it disappear? Okay, so there are things that still exist even though some people aren't observing them.
Well, I guess that would be the point, is that if there's no one observing them, they don't exist, because it's the energy of light entering in through a lesser mind from a greater mind that observes, and then when it's no longer being observed, there's nothing occurring. It's an existential kind of discussion, but if a reality is created by a force of energy, and that force of energy then retracts itself, then there is no reality.
I understand what you mean about the observer effect, but for those who've passed on already, you're saying this reality doesn't exist anymore.
But yes.
We're still in it.
Yeah, so when we look at those who have passed on, we all are looking to return back to the one light. So if we pass on, time no longer has a meaning, and so we're entering into a single point of what we call the inner chamber, which is a single point of light. So whether we pass away from 1,000 years ago or 1,000 years in the future, our light takes us back to the same point, because we're all entering into the same entry and exit point of space.
I'm not sure whether you've said this before or not. Since Diane passed, have you had contact with her energy?
I have, many times.
Okay, so you're in a memory, and yet you're still having contact with someone who's exited the system. How does that work?
Because time doesn't exist, so all things happen at the same time. So on a human level, it's still happening, and at the same time, it's all happened. So we don't perceive time in the same way that time actually exists. It's all happening at once. So when Diane passed, and it is a sensitive subject for me, so I'm going to tread carefully. When Diane passed away, she both returned to the light of what she is, and she stayed, because in the timeless, all is happening at once. And so she moved up and down my entire life timeline to every place she was needed, as well as she went home, as well as she went everywhere else she needed to go. Because as soon as we leave behind the time consciousness, timeless is all there is.
So having exited the system, does this still exist for her then?
Well, it's a point of perspective, because you said before that if there's no one left here to experience it, then is it still here? But your own question defines the fact that we are still here to experience it. So that's why I'm still existing, because we are still here. So we all leave together, but we all coexist in different times and time frames.
Okay. And how many of us were there all together? You said right at the beginning. I couldn't remember how many. Was it?
I didn't actually say in the beginning of today. And then that started to correlate very profoundly with the fractal reality and all the number patterns that we started to see emerging through the understanding of the construct of reality. So, the 120 programs, the thing called a quadrant system. So there's a lot of parts to that I would need to explain. So I'd rather not go into it tonight.
Sure.
But there's some other answers to that which just complicate that answer. So I'm just a little bit mindful of time, and I
Yep,
don't want
no,
to
fair
complicate
enough.
that
Cool.
answer. Yeah, but and that's in a way that they're things that we found out through our journeys, but they're not things that they ever told us. We found them out through various experiences, and they never used to speak about things at that detail because they didn't want us to be focusing on the detail. They want us to be focusing on the remembering, and that's one of the most important parts. Is it's to be focused on the remembering of light, because within the remembering of the light that you are, come all the levels of information that you need to be aware of. There's more information that's more pertinent on a deeper level of our being that comes out when we are focusing on the light of remembering. Why are we here? What is our purpose? What do I need to remember? So there's answers to those questions, but I don't want to detract away, if that's okay, with the energy of the importance of being attuned to one's own light. So if there's no other questions now, if there is, we can go into Mary. Hi, Mary. Your microphone's still off, I think, Mary, if you're trying to speak.
Oh, sorry. Here I am, Jason.
That's
sorry,
okay.
I'm on my phone.
That's okay.
Here we go. Just a question, just something that you were talking about earlier. Something that I've been thinking about a lot just over the last couple of days is that even though the human Mary is who I am, not what I am, and is an illusion in the greatest scheme here in this simulation, one of my primary responsibilities, and it's just something, is that one of my number one priorities is to love, protect, and nurture her, the human Mary. And just a few things have been happening that I don't even know how to say what I'm saying. But we get caught up with all the other stuff. But when it comes down to the nitty gritty, it's the day to day, hour by hour, minute by minute. How is the human Mary functioning here? How is she feeling? Is she feeling overwhelmed? Is she protected? Is she being assaulted, demeaned, criticized, judged, ridiculed, etc.? Or what is my function here to protect her? Because I am the greater part of her, even though she's not real.
Okay, so
it's more a statement than anything or something.
Just trying to clarify the question. So it's more around, if I'm understanding you correctly, it's more around how you are holding your space as you live your life. Am I getting that correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
and where my focus is on, and the Mary human, everything is happening through her here.
That's right. I think that's I guess a place that we all get to, where we're looking at the point of living every day. What does it mean? Well, what are we doing? And I think that I want to frame it in a way that can be of greatest value. So a lot of our work, Mary, as you know, isn't done through the day. It's done through the night. Because that's when we shift consciousness, and that's when we enter into other places. And so through the day it can seem pointless. It can seem mundane. It can seem difficult. And I think the only way that I was shown from how I live and what I experience, is that if I am aware and I am feeling that my energy is in line with something far greater, it gives me a sense of connection. It gives me a sense of awareness. It gives me a sense of that I am vibrating to the right sound. And then I still have to then go and live my life. I still have to then try and find meaning. And one of the hardest things, I think, in the earlier groups, and Maria might agree with this, is people trying to find a sense of purpose in their life when they're trying to be a greater being, or they were trying to connect to something greater and still trying to be the human being. And there was a lot of conflict and a lot of misunderstanding that came from that. And I think, now I'm not sure whether it's going to answer your question or not, but I think that letting the human being be the human being. It's very important that it has its own space as a human being, and that duality comes therefore very, very important. If you are understanding the light that you are, and you're going inwardly to feel that connection itself gives you the confidence in your life to be wherever you need to be. Now, for everyone is different. Not everyone knows what they want to do with their life. Not everyone knows what they want to, how they want to behave, what they want to be. There's complexities around that, and I can't answer that question for everybody. But what I can say is that for me, every day I make sure that in the quietest place in my mind, I'm connected. And that gives me the peace every day, that even if I'm having a good day or a bad day, whatever it might be, that deep connection I have inside is my mainstay. That is the part that tells me I can be patient, I can wait, I can work, I can laugh, I can live. But again, it comes back to that. And maybe it's a discussion about maybe that's a way to look at it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. I think I'll jump to Pauline's question because I think it's along the same. Love is the way to walk our journey. However, how do we be in the construct but not of it? And I think, Pauline, that question is again a very important one, which adds on to what we were just saying with Mary. We have to observe this reality for what it is, and I believe, and I experience that when we are aware that it is only a memory, we can limit and reduce our reactions to it as much as possible. I'm not saying we can reduce, or we should reduce them all, because we have to survive. We have to live, and we have to function. But Alonis often spoke about reactions versus responses, and the more we believe this is real, then the more we react to it, and then we become a part of the construct rather than moving through it. And there's two parts to that, and I'll expand on it in a second. So the awareness that we are moving through the construct because it's not real helps us to understand that we observe the reality, but we don't get caught up in it. And then, of course, we have to understand that, well, we're human beings, we have families, we have partners, we have children, we have jobs, we have all this stuff that goes on. And so we have to be relative to it, but we can't be defined by it. And for me, that's the most powerful thing, to not be, to be in the construct and not of it. This reality will never define me. It will look at me, it will observe me, it will judge me, it will tell me what it wants me to hear, but it will never define me. It will never know me, and it will never want to know me. If I connect to someone like I'm connecting to all of you tonight in a way that resonates to an understanding, that's beautiful. But I will not be defined by anyone who seeks to define me, and I will not be defined by a program. It will not change the fact that I am an essence of light walking through the illusion of darkness. And so, again, it comes back to the inner light, the inner connection. I encourage people to understand that they will have reactions to this program because we have hearts. We believe in love. We don't want hate. We come from a place where this stuff is irrelevant because it's understood and it doesn't exist. But while we're here, we're surrounded by things that are very difficult. So to react to this program is to give it power, to observe and respond, knowing that it's illusion, but it is happening anyway. That response allows our inner being to keep vibrating. Because reactions to this program, we're human. And again, this is the duality. We're human. We're going to have a feeling about something. But if we react, then we're believing it's real. And Alonis once said that the greatest response is no response at all. When you have no response, you're standing as the flame within the reality, and you're not defined by the reality, so you don't have a response to it. And I don't believe that's an ideology at all. I believe that's a way of life. And so that's why I sit with people every day who go through the most horrific experiences, and I help them to heal, to see their way. And so I know what it's like to hurt like hell. I know what it's like to be in such pain that you can't see the end of it. But like Alonis, when he first entered here, and he entered into darkness and had to stay hidden for millennia, I can go through a darkness and know that it will end, and that it is an illusion, and I am an illusion. And for me, I find that comforting. I find it comforting to know that I am an illusion. I'm not even real. But while I even know that I'm not real, and I'm a part of the construct, Grant, going back to the concept before about the dream, then I'm dreaming. And I'm in the dream, and I'll watch the dream, I'll observe the dream, I'll interact with the dream. But ultimately, I'm the dreamer, and I'm not even here. I just think I am. And so in the toughest times, I find it a very profound help to understand that duality, which ultimately becomes a single point of awareness. And so, to me, that's how I live in the construct and not be of it. It doesn't say I don't have responses, but it means that I limit them as best I can, according to the energy of connection to what I am. Because, again, what we are needs our human being. We wouldn't be here otherwise. So we have to have relativity and context. And that gives our energy of light a chance to emanate, to communicate. So it's a bit of both worlds in a way, but at the same time, there's only one centre point.
Yeah, that's something I didn't quite get with different other times you've spoken, that it's to look on it as a memory. I mean, I look at that a little bit like you're playing a game of soccer or netball or rugby or something, and you get too wrapped up in it, and you go, hold on, it's only a game.
That's right. That's right.
It's going to end after the second half.
That's right, and that's why things only have the power we give them, Grant. And that's why a lot of, even when we do energy work and when we do workshops on energy work, and Diane used to always train me and others this way, and I do the same, and that is that people often think now they have to white light themselves to protect themselves against entities, and they have to reinforce their energy field to protect themselves against threats. But that's the old way. That was when the safety switch was off, if you like, to use a Star Trek holodeck kind of analogy. The safeties were off, and there was a lot of adversarial energies, and we had to defend ourselves. And I can tell you one thing, we had a lot of interspecies, interdimensional and inter-energy conflict over a lot of years. But the irony is, when you realise that, then you realise you didn't actually need to defend yourself at all. And then when people ask, what do I mean by that? I say, well, I'm a flame. No one needs to tell me I'm a flame. I just know I'm a flame, and I burn. And I burn bright, and I burn true. I don't need someone's permission. And if something else tries to make me think I'm not a flame, well, it's not true. I am a flame. So it doesn't matter what they try and make me think. Or they might try and make me think, oh, you might go out. And so I become afraid that I go out, and therefore I stop being a flame because I believe in the fear of possibly burning out. So if I don't listen to the fear, if I define myself by what I am, by how I feel, by what I resonate with, by my light that I carry, then I don't need to defend myself against anything, because the resonation of my energy field is such that it can't be anything else. And that's what light is. It's an energy that can't be anything else. And so when I still have entities moving through my room, my night state, I still encounter quite a lot. But they have no power because it doesn't matter, because they don't have any power over me, only the power I give them. And a lot of experiences people have, and if you think about it, even in this world, in this program, this experiment was becoming very successful until it was shut down, because people believe that others have power over them. And so we only don't have the power that we give away. And that's true equally to our light that we have inside. So that's hopefully an answer to the question in a way, but it's also a very important message, because if light is all that's real, and light is all that's real, then all that is darkness cannot possibly influence what's real. And whilst the greater plan has had to maneuver and strategize around illusion, it only did so because it had to find its way through it. If it didn't need illusion, it wouldn't have bothered. It would have just gone straight for our people, but it had to work its way through the illusion of reality to get to them. But now that it's connected, the old program is defense and fear, contracts. The new program is resonating only to the light of what you are, which means observing this reality, being fair to yourself, being kind to yourself, but also knowing that the governing energy of what you are is your greater memory, which sort of comes to the greater mind.
Mm-hmm.
Covering that lesson.
Can I ask also, are we obvious to the ones that are not us? It's almost like sometimes you feel like you're a people come to you like a magnet.
Very much so. Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm wondering if the ones that are, not of us and really perhaps are repelled by our energy, do they know that we are who we are?
It's a variation, and so programs often respond differently because they don't understand the energy that we carry, and so some programs are more sensitive than others in our experience. In terms of interdimensionals, it can be a temporary thing, we have found, because as your energy starts to vibrate away from the human frequency and starts to vibrate more profoundly to a different energy, it's often detectable that it is a disturbance to your energy field, and so you can often attract attention. But what I've found is that the more we resonate and tune into the new program, which is what happened when the shift occurred, then you go far beyond their range, because your energy is of a purity of light that they simply don't understand or detect. We had many experiences in the last probably 10 years of our life where we were told and we experienced that they could detect us, but they couldn't trace us. And so we would have a lot of attention, but they weren't able to adapt or match or follow our energy. So we would relocate, or we would shift our energy to a different place. And so the process of being still attracted to that will reduce and disappear, because you become a frequency that's independent of the program but existing within the program, which takes you back to the question about being within the construct but not of the construct. So your frequency as it refines itself, and they call it a refinement of light, as you strengthen your connection to your inner being, then you will go through a phase of being, I guess, variable, but ultimately when you are locking into the essence of light that you're of a completely different sound. That's what I have experienced, particularly since 2020. Yeah.
So the job of the simulation was to reflect back your fears and your beliefs. So since 2020, that's not the case. It's only in our imagination that it's reflecting back now. Is that correct?
Okay, so what was the first part that you said, Eileen? I didn't quite catch the first part.
Well, the job of the simulation, I understand, was to be a mirror or reflect back or bring more of what we fear.
Okay. Let's just break that down slightly. So the role of the simulation was not to reflect back what you fear. The role of the simulation was to place us into a memory construct, which was a doorway to access what we call duplicate space, which is where everybody got stuck. Everyone got lost in a parallel space that we call duplicate space. So the role of simulation was to put us alongside duplicate space as a doorway to access into places where so many got lost. The nature of this reality is that in order for us to wake up and remember, the nature of this reality does reflect back to us our fears. And therefore we also generate our fears if we can't let them go. So the nature of this reality wasn't about us. It wasn't about us facing our fears. It wasn't about us registering our beliefs or anything. We're quite irrelevant to the reason this reality is here. It was the doorway to the duplicate space. But whilst we're here, for the human being to let go of the shackles of memory, and for the human being to clarify the debris from its energy field and to realize all of the fears are no longer necessary, then the nature of our energy contrasts against this reality and reflects back things we need to see that we need to let go of. So it was a clarification exercise at the same time.
Thank you.
It's okay.
Slowly.
It's okay. That's okay. So Jen asked a question. I don't think Jen could get here tonight. Jen asked a question about what are the best strategies to successfully navigate the global oligarchy moves to divest us. What are the best practices and strategies to free ourselves from entrapment in physical and non-physical forms? We've sort of really just been speaking about that because we can't change what this program is doing. And so to navigate through this world is to firstly find a way that you're able to survive in the most harmonious way possible. Because remembering doesn't take place in fear. And so it's important, I think, to do what makes us happy, which sounds simple, but it's very important. And it's important, of course, to find a way forward that keeps you safe. I think it comes down to the very basic elements of human endeavour, even though we're talking about the greatest, I guess, dimension of thinking. But what makes you happy and what keeps you safe. And then within that is the awareness that we're here as a holding station, because that's what we are. We are a holding station of memory through which our light energy moves through and enters into the side-long duplicate space, which is where the missions have been for so long. And so best practices, tune into your inner sound and find every aspect of fear and try and understand how to let it go. Because of course we want to survive, we don't want to be hungry, we want to have money, and these are all normal things to do, and we have to do those things. But at the same time we have to balance that with the awareness that being illusion, we have to find the most peaceful way through it that we can. We're not here to change anything. That's one thing they were very clear about for a long, long time. We're not here to change anything. We're here to observe it and move through it and hold our position. And that doesn't sound glamorous. I know a lot of people want more kudos than what we are sometimes given or experience. But a big part of this is holding our position. Because, for example, this one's very close to home, but I will say it anyway. In the 90s, Alanis was speaking, and he said to us, maybe you're only here for 5 minutes. And of course it would happen to be that years later in 2020 that for exactly 4.34 minutes Diane went through something that was the most powerful part of her life and the most powerful part of mine. And so 43 years of her life's work was for 5 minutes. And she could question that all the years. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? And not have any answers. But she never gave up. And she persisted, and she was devoted, and she fought, and she pushed. Everything else was important too, but it all led to 5 minutes. So we can't underestimate the importance of every moment. If we're breathing, there's a purpose. And that purpose may just be holding your energy. And if your purpose is to hold your energy structure, then whilst you're doing that, you may as well be safe and happy. And these aren't answers sometimes that people want to hear, but they are the truth. Because of the nature of this reality and the nature of where we are and why we're here. And it's a very powerful story. Sorry, Pauline asked a question. Are my children real purely by coming through me? Okay, it's very likely, in fact, in most cases I've seen that operatives and those of us who have a greater awareness that our children have a frequency that is connected to one of our people as well. Maybe more consciously, it may be subtly, but we become caretakers, Pauline, and in the, I guess it's almost resource management in a way, in a silly human term. If someone, I think this might have actually been said to Diane once, many years ago, and they said that they would not waste the abilities of one of our people on children, with all due respect, when they could place one of our people in their care as well. And so my answer is almost certainly yes, because no one else will understand a child who has feelings of a greater capacity than someone who is of a greater capacity. So that has been my experience so far. Eileen asked the last question, but it was in 2 parts. The first part is, according to Archaic's chronological findings, the next great reset is 2040 and a big event in 2046. That was the diagram I saw from Archaic's chronological, where it did identify 2020 as well, as of course I have identified 2020. And so I think there's a lot of congruent parts to that Archaic's chronological findings. What I would say to that statement is Alanis did not give us a timeline of the future. And that's because it's variable. Things like the Mayan calendar, things like 2030, 2040, 2020. There's dates that have come and gone. Some happen, some don't. We know that at least in my memory and Diane's memory, that COVID wasn't happening until 2040 and then suddenly, 2030, then it's happening in 2020. So that was accelerated. So even if a timeline is given, it can change because the program changes. Either it gets changed or it changes in reaction to something. And I'm not talking about the humans who think they're in control. I'm talking about the program itself as a once sentient operation, and also the reasons why they didn't give us dates and years unless it was they gave us some that were important, but not in a global sense. Often, because again, then we focus on these events, and then we're not focusing on our inner journey. We're focused on outer facts. So they've given us information over time. Some of it was very important, but not often. They told us about things to come. They told us about countries and governments in the world, what they were doing. They told us about the future in general, but never usually specific dates. And then we subsequently came to learn that, of course, that's because reality keeps changing. And so, again, this is a mosaic reality. It's constructed and put together with like a patchwork quilt from different programs according to the needs of the greater. So, Great Reset, I don't believe in a Great Reset. I may be talking about financially in this program. Clearly there's something happening there. But in terms of a Great Reset, the reset to me was in 2020. And that was the shift, and that affected everything. So I'm not expecting a Great Reset on any universal level in 2040 or 2046. Whatever happens is a permutation of 2020. Because that was the shift. There's only one shift, and that was when the shift happened in this timeline, and it happened everywhere all at once. So there's probably a lot more to talk about in terms of events in the future, but I'll just leave it there for now. Also, 3 admirals from SpaceX have returned from their mission with a heart to help humanity at this time. Is that part of memory reality? Yeah, I believe it is, and I believe, again, a lot of astronauts come back and they say they've got a heart to help humanity, and they didn't really go anywhere because they know there's nowhere to travel to. And so there's a lot of lies here, in my opinion. It's all just lies. And so sounds great. Elon Musk has a great agenda. SpaceX sounds great. A lot of money for nothing, in my opinion. But you've got people coming back saying that they have seen, the truth of the universe. Well, we know they didn't get much past the magnetosphere, if that, or even not even that, even the stratosphere. And then, of course, wherever they did go, I don't believe a single word the program says. So I don't really think that they have a heart to help. I think they're part of an agenda storyline to keep people believing in hope. And so I don't really believe a lot of what we hear out there, because unless they came out one day and took us all down to Antarctica and showed us what's really down there, then I'm not going to believe a single word that they say. That's just a personal answer, but that's how I feel about it. So SpaceX, just another one of the lies that are sitting out there in the world, in my opinion, Eileen.
May I ask a question, Jason?
Yes, hi, Eileen.
Hi. Please will you elaborate a little bit about staying safe? Because that's my button that gets pressed.
Yes.
And, a lot of people who say they're staying safe actually are people that are complying, and how they stay safe, and I'm not prepared to comply. So I'm sort of stepping into danger, kind of almost purposefully.
Understand.
But is that foolish of me to do?
In my personal opinion, no, it's not foolish. I certainly have no desire or plan to give up my sovereignty, I guess, as a human being. This AI thing that's going rampant across the world, there's a lot of things happening a lot very quickly. So I think stepping into danger, it's whatever you feel you need to do to be true to yourself and to be safe within your own energy. So we have to function, obviously, somehow. We have to look at practical aspects of it, of course, but it has to be true to yourself. And I don't believe what's coming is necessarily going to be easy, but I believe if we follow the path of what our inner light is telling us, it will show us the way. Because the definition of the new program, by way of the shift, is that there is only one pathway that gets us out of here. It looks like a myriad of possibilities. There's a lot of talk about the quantum field holding infinite possibilities. It's not true. It holds infinite potential because we move through the quantum field to go home, but not infinite possibilities because it's a limited program construct. And so in that, my point by saying that is that in this reality, we have to follow the path of our inner guidance. And if your inner guidance is leading you along a path that keeps you safe within your own being, to me that is what I hold truer. That's how I see it. I don't know where the path goes for me. I do know that I will always remain true to what I am. I will follow my guidance. I obviously need to eat, function and breathe as long as I need to. So I'm going to be smart. I had a conversation with another gentleman who talked about going off grid and going living in the grass with the tents and everything. And I said, well, I can't do my job. And so to me, I'm going to be strategic. So I'm not going to obey for compliance. I'm not going to make a decision based upon what other people think I should do. I may make one decision that's this way one day and that way another day. I will follow the guidance of what I am, wherever that might lead me, whatever that might need me to do. I took the jab to get over to New Zealand. I knew exactly what it was. I couldn't get over here without it, but Alonis was telling me, you have to go to New Zealand. Diane was telling me after she passed away, you have to go to New Zealand. And so I put myself in harm's way and took the jabs to get onto the flight, to get over to here, once they finally lifted the curtain. And I got over here under great distress and duress, but when I was concerned about taking that pathway, Alonis arrived and he spoke to me and he gave me a date. And so I took the date, I went back into the archives of the documents, and I went to the date, and that was a date that went back 16 years to the day. There was a document where he spoke about exactly what I was talking about the human body, the DNA, the light blueprint, the molecular blueprint, and they gave me instructions on how to understand the process. And so I prepared my mind, my body. I used everything from supplements to mindfulness, to meditation, to inner light work. I did everything for months, took the jab, kept detoxing, chelating afterwards, got over here, landed, and I've since done a lot of tests and I'm completely clear because I did a lot of work to prepare and to clear. My point with that story is I never stopped believing because I had to do something I didn't want to do. But I did the right thing, so that kept me safe in my journey. So I will do what keeps me safe in my journey at all times, without compromise. But I will not be putting anything in my body. I will not be capitulating to a system that wants to be implanted. I do not trust AI, not one bit. There is so much of it now purporting to be real. I do still believe in a positive future, as much as what I say doesn't sound like it. I do always have very positive feelings about the future. So I don't know how that plays out, but I will continue to be safe in my own space. That was the 3 questions. If we have any other questions, I'm very happy to ask or answer a few more and talk a bit more. I still want to talk about the greater and lesser mind, even though I've kind of been talking about it the whole way through. Anyway, but I'll leave that for a moment in case anyone else would like to ask a question of any kind.
Not so much a question, just an observation that if we slightly just shift our perspective to observing and not taking this reality as seriously, it has the potential for us to perhaps negotiate things in an easier way because we don't freak out so much.
Correct. That's exactly correct. That's right. Because you're responding, not reacting.
Yeah.
If we look at the fact that reactions are all based upon fear of survival, and responses are based upon a considered response through thoughtful awareness to a situation. So let's look at responding rather than reacting. Because reacting comes from memory, responding comes from awareness. So I agree.
Yeah, I'm reminded many, many years ago, I always remember a phrase that came up, and it was, so everything's a test. And in the context of what it was trying to say, I think it was quite useful because there was a number of quite, not desperate situations, but, really gnarly things. And I just said to myself, don't worry about it, it's just a test. And because I didn't take it overly seriously,
That's right.
and it was a serious thing, but I rose above it. And the outcome was A, not as bad, and B, even though it wasn't necessarily pleasant or good, it all turned out all right anyway in the end. Whereas if I'd freaked out...
It's remarkable, yeah. And that's a great example, Grant. That's a great example because...
Yeah, it'd been a complete cluster.
Yeah. When you withdraw from a reaction and you stand in the... Again, it comes back to the candle in the darkness. If whatever's happening around you elicits or wants to elicit a fear response or is just a program, then if you are in the middle of that and you don't react, then you have a different energy signature and you also have a different mindset. And so everything changes. If you don't react, everything changes.
And that's the interesting thing about this discussion tonight is in reviewing that process is you can alter the change within what seems to be a preset program, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's right. And I think I understand the analogy of the test because in that context it was correct. And I think when we look at the fact that everything is an opportunity in today's context, everything is an opportunity to be aware. And so in our life, if we can respond, then we change everything. And I think that's also what Alonis was telling us for years, and Diane too. When you know it's illusion, your whole response changes. You still have to survive. You still have to be true, and that's where, again, it seems a hard place to find until you find it, and then it's perfectly simple. And when you do find it, you realise that you are what you are, but you're an illusion. So you've got to take care of the illusion as what you are. And that's so simple. And when you get it, it makes, to you, everyone gets in their own way. And so you never compromise, but you're more interested in strategizing through a program that it's an illusion. And when people don't want to strategize, they want to hold on to an ideal, or they want to hold on to something based upon fear, they run the risk of walking into the fire through their own fear. So knowing yourself is, of course, the prime director there. Is you have to know why you feel the way you do, why you're reacting, who you are, what you feel, what your fears are. So know thyself is the important part of having a response. But where you can respond, as you said, you see everything differently. Thank you. Okay, so Noeline, there was another question here. Are you able to answer this? Children who are born from vax-injured parents and are injured, is there a way forward for them? Absolutely. The human body follows the mind. Now, I of course, there's going to be variations of extremity in this situation. I understand that. But when we look at the fact that this is not real, and I still understand, of course, there is a very delicate, understandable part of this equation that humans don't like to see humans suffer. At the same time, I believe, from my personal experience, is that and what we were told, is that the energy of what we are has the ability to energize the body in a way that can recover from vaccine injuries, illnesses, and regular diseases, inflammations. And don't just take my word for it, but even the work of Joe Dispenza. He has done a lot of work around that as well over in America, where they are reorganizing the human cell based upon the power of the mind, elevated emotions, and the energy field, and the pineal gland, and the whole balance of energy. So my answer is yes, I believe it is possible. It is about having, obviously, the ability to educate and get the mind to obviously operate in that way.
So Jason, my question is, I know we can fix the adults and the children who are vaccine injured. What I'm seeing, the difficulty is the children who are born with altered genetics. They are injured in a way that I'm unfamiliar with how to bring them back to the original, because the original is already I don't know how to say the words.
Compromised. Yeah. It's an interesting one. It's just so tragic to think to know that that's happening. Of course, which it is.
The ones that are injured here, easy peasy. I know what to do. But the ones that are coming in compromised, I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. Is this something you're personally experiencing?
Well, I've been asked to assess a child, and I literally just feel like I'm out of, it's the playbook hasn't been written. I just haven't even the first clue as to how to go back.
Yeah, I think that's, I think experiencing that level of helplessness is something I truly understand. And this is where it gets a little bit, I think, raw and hard, because the program is unfolding in ways that none of us like. And I don't know whether there is a way to actually, if it's developmental, if it's genetically developmental, I'm not confident there is a way to actually address that. And then from the greatest part of my being, or from anyone's being, you look at it as a memory construct, and this is where it's very delicate, because it's very easy to say, and I don't ever say things lightly, it's very easy to say, well, it's a memory, it's not actually happening. And then there's a young child in front of you that's been developmentally malformed because of an abusive effect on their body, and there's nothing right about that. And I can't say that I have an answer, unfortunately, Noeline, as to what you could do. I wish I did, but I can't say that I do, because I'm seeing both the natural unfolding of a very, very, very tragic program, which of course was put in place by others a long time ago, balanced off with the fact that observing that it's a program, and we can't always change some things. I believe someone of free will, someone of cognizant ability, someone of energetic capability, as I said before, can do that. But if not, I can't say yes, because I do believe that is what's unfolding in a program that was never meant to be. Is there anything you want to add on to that at all, Noeline? Okay, all right. Pauline's asked a question. I don't recall my dreams except for an odd time, usually when I'm staying away from home. Could it be that as a child I told a recurring dream to stop and go away? Maybe I'm not supposed to recall what happened when I'm asleep. Okay. We are definitely, in my opinion, supposed to remember our dreams. They are a gateway to so much of what we do. You are right as well. As children, because of the memories we hold of when this was not a safe place to be, a lot of us as children were approached and intimidated to not remember, and we were told things that made us scared, and we were shown things and had things done to us that made us scared. And so we hold that residual memory in the subconscious. And so yes, you may well have created a recurring dream in order to push away something that was scary. And that was one of the techniques that a lot of the interdimensional forces used with children to stop them waking up. And so I was terrorized as a young child through many of my dream states, because ultimately they did not want me to wake up, seek out Diane, and eventually meet Diane and have a destiny. So they know the timeline. And so these things happen to many of us who are real. And so my second answer is absolutely try and remember your dreams. And to do that, it's the technique that I first started with, which I think is I help people with even to this very day, is before you go to bed at night, if I can suggest, before you go to bed at night, to remind yourself that it's now safe to remember, and to tell yourself it's now safe to remember. And everything that's happened is under control and it's now safe to remember. And when you wake up, don't wake up to an alarm, if you can, and wake up, and as soon as you wake up, close your eyes and try and tune back into your dream state, and try and recall any image, any feeling, and write it down. And you will build up a bridge between your conscious and subconscious mind. I started doing that when I was very young. I know it's a lot of years now, but my dream recall, it's so much an important part of my life. I get so much information. I have been to so many worlds. I remember things vividly from so many places. I interact with beings I see, but I also hold them in position, I document them, and then every time there'll be another piece to the dream, another day, which will solve that dream, and then I get another continuation of the mission that my greater being is doing. And so some of the dreams, and I've had a chance to share some of them with some of the people here on single video calls, some of them are humbling. I wake up in tears. I wake up just blown away by the beauty of a being, or the graciousness of something. I've been in spaceships, I've been in starships, I've been on other worlds, I've been in evacuations of planets. I've had so many experiences, each one of them as vivid as a movie. and I'm in it and I'm doing it. So to remember your dreams, Pauline, if you can remember your dreams, I would take every possible action you can to do that, because it is absolutely safe. And the most common theme that I find if I go into the past, another world, another dimension, another place where there are profoundly troubling experiences such as wars, battles, terrible things, almost every single time I'm aware of a duality, I'm aware of a reality of the way it is, and then through the dream intersects another reality where there's a solution, because the future is entering back into the past to correct it. And it's an amazing thing that time stops becoming relevant. I don't really handle time very well, because I sort of flux between past and future a lot. And what I find is that very often you go into these deep, deep states and you're in two places at once, you're in two times at once. And the dreams show, when you learn to interpret your dream symbology, you'll start to get a very profound story out of your subconscious mind. So by all means, I would encourage you to tell your subconscious, because that's why you're not remembering them, is because life stresses get in the way. But the reason most people don't remember their dreams is because on a deep, deep level they feel unsafe doing so. So we tell ourselves we're safe, it's okay now, we're safe. And again, that comes back to the candle in the dark. It comes back to the in the construct, not of the construct. It comes back to the very beginning of when I talked tonight about being what you are within who you are, and nothing can take that away from you. So it is safe to remember. And that's something Alonus said. One of the things he said in the late 90s, he said, tell everyone it's safe to remember. It's time to come home. And that's what they said even back then. I'm a big dream person, Pauline. I document every single day, so it's important to me. So I'll prattle on about dreams until the power runs out. So, all right. Yeah, great question, thank you. And Nolene, that was a very sensitive but very important question. I do appreciate that very much. Yeah, it is a big balance between knowing what's real and what should never have been real. It's a big balance, and I believe it takes a strong person. I believe that's why we all are who we are. We were chosen because of our characteristics. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been chosen. We were carefully picked by us to be us, and we need to give ourselves credit for that sometimes, because sometimes I believe that love and compassion is as powerfully as important as fortitude and focus. So they're very important to me as well. So I do respect the question. Okay. Okay, so there's no more questions there. Does anyone else have anything they wanted to ask or say? If I could just jump back to Mary, if you're still there, just with your question earlier on, just to whether that did answer your question before, because I was sort of in the middle of a couple of different topics at the time.
Yeah, it's just, it's sort of like a conundrum, if you ask me. That's not who I am. We're in an illusion. It's not real. And I understand connecting to your sound, but if I don't take care of Mary the human, then my sound gets diluted or dispensed amongst the trauma of Mary. So that's why I said here, if she's my number one concern, occasionally, not always, to protect her, love her, whatever, all those other things, then it's that observer effect thing that I can be distant to the trauma of her, but at the same time, I don't know. I can't find the words for it.
Yeah, I just think that what you're saying makes a lot of sense. That we have to be kind to ourselves. We have to be very, very diligent to look after ourselves. We have to, because we are the vessel in which the sound vibrates. So we have to be very true and kind to ourselves. So that means to me, and I'd be very honest and frank about it. I have needed more love and care from myself over the past, 5.5 years of my life than I ever thought I would ever need. And so I've had to be very diligent to make sure that I'm okay at all times. Taking care of you is a number one priority. And then the more you integrate with your energy, the more you are your energy. There is no... I don't feel a separation. I talk about duality.
No, absolutely.
But there's no separation between what I am and who I am. I talk about duality, but that's because duality is the point of recognition of what we are and who we are, because this is illusion, and what we are isn't. So duality is relevant, but to me, taking care of yourself, which dovetails into Nolene's question before, taking care of yourself and being safe within yourself in every way possible respects the energy, the sound, the frequency, the love, the light that you are as well. Because light isn't just a thing that exists in your heart and your mind, it's in every cell of your body. And when every cell of your body is also equally traumatized, every cell of your body has to be loved. And so the whole thing is a congenial oneness for me. Thank you everyone for joining what I believe is the first Journey of the Spirit webinar. It's now going to be an audio webinar because thanks Mary, by the looks of it. But anyway, it is what it is. What I'd like to do next time is talk about the structure of space, because I say a lot of things, and sometimes I realise that I have a very clear understanding of the structure of space in my mind, and others don't. Just purely because I've lived this for so long, and I have information that was hard fought for and won. So I think next time what I'd like to do is talk about the structure of space, expand on what I've said today, but in a simple form, so we can understand. So when I say we exist in recreation, and we leave recreation to go into duplicate space, and duplicate space is accessed by the real space, what does that actually mean? Because it's hard to understand. And then we'll know where the Galactic Command comes in, we will know where Michael comes in, we will know where Alonus went, we will know where Azil fell. It's probably a diagram I'll create between the next session and this one, and then we'll put it up and I'll talk through it. I think that's probably the best thing to start with next time. Wonderful. All right. Lovely to see everyone. Okay, I'll sign off and see you next time.